This is the Storyworks Roundtable, where we have conversations about craft. Because becoming a successful author begins with writing a great story. Hey, Storyworks writers! I have a brand new live course beginning on March 1st. It's open for enrollment now. Plot, You Are the Master of Your Story is an 8-week workshop with a live classroom. That means I'll be there every step of your way, teaching you on live calls, answering your questions in real time, engaging with you in the student forum, and you'll have direct access to my personal best email. This is no, here's a video, good luck, online class. This is an MFA level workshop with an experienced classroom instructor. This course is designed to take your understanding and handling of plot to the next level, or even the next level. The course contents are covered in detail at StoryworksFiction.com, so I won't go into them all here. But you might have noticed my plot writing tips I'm releasing in honor of my new course. You can find those on the course site too, so if nothing else, use the link to StoryworksFiction.com and watch the plot writing tips. And if you choose to enroll, do it now for the early bird price. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the classroom. Hello and welcome to this week's Storyworks Roundtable. Catherine and I are delighted to have Leeland Artra with us. Leeland is a Navy-trained computer engineer working to become a full-time writer. He lives in the Emerald City, that's Seattle, Washington, with his idea-inspiring family. Ooh, I think there's a topic in there. The first half of his life was wasted, as his mother said to him from time to time, avidly reading science fiction fantasy and participating in role-playing games of all sorts. He says he's still trying to waste more time than he works as a general life goal. Good goal. Currently, he spends weekdays working as a code janitor, his own term for the software engineering work, reading too many fiction books, no such thing, helping his son with growing and homework, making tea for his wife, and attempting to avoid Netflix and Hulu. He can be found at lartra.com, all over social media and most book retailers. And we will definitely link to Leeland's website and at least one of his books in the show notes. So if you can't remember Artra, head over to Storyworks Podcast. Leeland, thank you so much for joining us here at the Roundtable.
Oh, well, I'm kind of excited to be here. It's been a while since I've done anything interesting like this. So.
Oh, good.
It'll be fun.
It will be fun. I can tell from your bio that it's going to be fun. That's one of the more colorful bios we've had. So,
well, you always said that you like working with me. That's one of the reasons why, right?
Right. That is true. That is very true. Yeah, your comments make me laugh fairly often. So,
you're my favorite editor, so you're solid.
Well, there we go. So we are going to talk today about coming back to writing after a big break. And you said some things like procrastination is a killer, life gets in the way, you've got writer envy of people who started at the same time as you but are now off retired from their day jobs, etc. So let's have you dig into that. Shape the topic for us, Leeland.
Okay, well, fine. I'm a little surprised people would actually want to listen to this, but then when I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, I'm probably not alone.
Right.
And so it's one of these things where it's like I really dug in hard. Alita was part of the beginning of my writing journey, and I had some extremely great success. I mean, my first book earned almost as much in profits the first year as my day job.
Wow.
And I was very, very excited. I was thinking, all right, here we go. I can actually, make a living as an author.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got the second book out, but then the third book actually hadn't been finished when I was publishing the trilogy. And that turned into a real grind because, I got some really excellent feedback. I had to kind of make some adjustments. And so what I thought I had, I didn't. And so that ended up taking the better part of a year and a half to actually get that third book of the trilogy finished. And at that point, I had lost the momentum, right? So the sales had dropped off. I'd done the ever famous cliff of sales,
right?
And then I, being a computer guy, I started listening to podcasts, and I started doing social media. I mean, I was doing a bunch of stuff that I didn't like to do. I don't like social media. I'm not on Twitter. Facebook drives me nuts. It's not because I'm old, but it could be. But I didn't enjoy those. I wasn't on them. But every podcast I was listening to was, go get on these social media. This is where you find your book sales. This is where you find your audience, And so I started doing all of that, and then I started trying to do advertising. I was listening to a lot of podcasts and buying how to be a better author, and they were all talking about advertising, Facebook ads, and Twitter ads, and I was trying to figure all of that out. And I spent so much time working on the ads and trying to track my sales and month by month, and doing return on investment calculations and doing giveaways. I wasn't doing any writing, and I literally burned out on that.
Right.
But then I started writing my next book, which I was working with Alita with again, and that was super exciting. But then I got seriously sidetracked because there's nothing more shiny than the next story. So to make a long story short, I mean, after about a year of attempting to get back into writing, I literally had 5 whole series planned, and not one of them was like the other, right? So I had hard science fiction, I had space opera, I had the original epic fantasy trilogies, I had another trilogy planned for coming after the first set, I had a steampunk series. And it's just I couldn't get any focus down on one thing. And I just kind of like, okay, this is not working. And it's like at that point I wasn't making any money from the books because sales had dropped off again. And so it's like if I worked really hard advertising, I can make a couple $100 a month.
Right.
If I spent a couple $100 a month, I could make $200 more per month. So yes, there was a return on investment, but it was only maybe 15-20% return. And my significant other, as much as I love her, she was kind of really getting mad because I was spending thousands of dollars on my author career, which was earning hundreds of dollars. Right. So needless to say, the family support dried up. And at that point, I was like, okay, now I'm fighting. I'm doing stuff I don't enjoy. I'm doing a bunch of marketing. I'm trying to be on Twitter. I'm trying to engage with people. I'm not enjoying talking to them because I'm an introvert. Right.
Right. Yes.
I just want to write my stories, and if someone wants to talk to me about my story that I'm currently writing, awesome. But I couldn't find anyone who wanted to talk to me about the story I was currently writing.
Right. Right. Wow. Yeah, that sounds like such a recipe for burnout. And I think so many writers find themselves in that situation or somewhere on that same path where, okay, I've got this story I'm writing, but now I need to get it into people's hands. And how do I market it? And 20 podcasts are giving me 20 sets of advice, and I'm trying to follow them all and find the magic formula. And you were developing stories in 5 different genres. So were you trying to find the most marketable genre, or do you really have passion for each of those stories?
Actually, so one of them was a prequel to my epic fantasy, but that was a hard science fiction. I actually understand that timeline. I have that planned out. The steampunk one was because I did a really strange scientific scientist research thing that I ended up spending. I literally, I'm not lying. I spent 16 hours a day, 7 days a week for 3 months, learning everything I could about how vision worked in an atmosphere, because I was absolutely sure that the cover to Ring World by Larry Niven was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And
Catherine is laughing.
It's like I woke up at 3 a.m. one morning and I had the perfect picture of the Ring World book in my head, and I'm like, it would not look like that. And I don't know why, but for some reason I squirreled on it.
Mm-hmm.
And after 3 months of doing that research, I was able to definitively say, yep, it would not look like that. That's not, the cover is completely inaccurate. That artist didn't know what they're talking about. But then I had 3 months worth of research into how vision works and how things would play out and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of like, well, I have to do something with this. So I started running my steampunk series using that knowledge. So the steampunk series is essentially a retelling of Galileo's life.
Okay.
If Galileo was a girl, and if Galileo lived on a Dyson's bubble, which is the equivalent of Ring World, but actually fully encasing the star. So all of his experiments, all of his research would not pan out the way it did for him in real. So, and that's where I came up with the steampunk series. But it all ties it together. All of these things tie together. So I mean, so for me, I'm passionate about all these projects. Mm-hmm. My problem is that I'm not sure which one's going to sell. I mean, and the funny thing is I'm being stupid, and I will freely admit that. I have a best-selling trilogy that was literally top 50 best-selling for 3 years solid. Wow. Okay, so it's not. Mm-hmm. It didn't fall out of the top 50 for the first 3 years that it was out. Mm-hmm. It was out there. If I just wrote a sequel to that. Mm-hmm. It's probably money in the bank.
Right.
I have a sequel planned, but I'm not quite wanting to get there.
Right. So let's talk about that. Yeah. Like, I think as writers, especially as indie writers, so many of us feel the push-pull of the story we want to tell versus the story we think is more marketable. I mean, have probably 3/4 of a draft of the third Skog Hall book, and for whatever reason, it was not writing the way the first two books did. So what happened with your sort of burnout process, and why not just write that next book for the market? You know, the series that's already successful. Like, what's going on with you, Leeland?
That's a question I have to ask myself. So I mean, so at this point, I'm still not. I've lost the focus that I had, where it's kind of like I don't have real life has right now for me is a chaotic jumble. I do not have what by any stretch of the imagination anyone would consider a stable schedule. Mm-hmm. And I'm not willing to trim that life. So the fact of the matter is because of my son's just turned a teenager, and he's in middle school, and he's taking all honors classes, and I'm damn proud of him. But he's also a tap dancer, clogger. He's also in a band. He's in a rock band. And he's very, very talented and very, very good. So I come home from work, and he's got literally 3 or 4 hours worth of homework that he needs help with to go through and explain the math, explain the science, kind of, you know, and you know, he wants us to essentially edit. So I'm being his editor for his homework, and I'm double cross-checking and stuff, and he's also taking French, which, you know, I haven't spoken in many, many years, but at one point I was fluent. So he wants help practicing with French, and he wants help with this homework, and so And in addition to that, I have a number of other things that's going on, and I do have to make my wife tea. And it's like after I make her tea, then we have to drink the tea, and then there's this thing called conversation, which is highly overrated.
And yet here you are.
Right? And so it's like, literally, it's like this. It's 11 midnight before I'm free. And I'm getting up at 6 a.m. to go to my day job. So where do I find the time to write? I don't. And I mean, I guess I could stop listening to my books, but I'm currently in the middle. I mean, I'm in the middle of some Brandon Sanderson series, and those are really, really long, and I can't put them down. Right. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
so that's that. And what's stopping me? I mean, and seriously. So what's stopping me from actually going and writing that follow-on trilogy, next trilogy in that series, is the fact that the steampunk fantasy series that I started writing, I purposefully am writing it so that I can, in theory, produce books faster with less work. But I have this incredibly good editor who gives me really good ideas, and that means I have to rewrite them like 3 or 4 times, and I feel like I'm back in college doing my thesis papers.
Right. Don't you just hate that?
I can't tell why I pay for that too.
Yeah, seriously. Yes.
I mean, and so that's why
Sorry, Leeland.
I have the steampunk series. It's literally 85 books long. Now, that sounds like a lot, but it's actually 85 novellas. They're fully planned out.
Still a lot.
The whole thing's planned out. In theory, I should be able to if I could put in about 1 to 2 hours a night, I could probably put out one every month or two. And the point is I've started on that series, so I'm being stubborn in that I'm like, okay, I'm going to finish this before I move on to something else, because I think that's I've squirreled too much.
Right. Well, so okay, you said a lot there. I think all you have to say is teenager, and anybody who's parented a person to and beyond age 13 goes, oh yeah, okay, I get that. Chaos there. Good chaos, though, in your case, at least. So that's...
I'm not complaining. It's just...
It's reality. Yeah, so what... Because you did take a break from writing, if I'm not mistaken, and now you've come back into it in a big way, even with all of this life stuff happening. So what made you decide to come back to it now instead of shelving your writing longer? And I know you're doing a newsletter, so you are engaging with your audience. So
right. So I'm trying to find a way to do the right level of marketing that is not going to burn me out.
Catherine, you look frozen. Are you there?
She's there.
I think I'm still here.
Okay. Good.
I'm interested in, so how did you flip that switch in your brain from, okay, I'm kind of burnt out, I'm done, like the marketing has taken my passion for writing, to, no, I really love writing, like let's get back into that. I need to find the time, I need to make the time, I need to, figure that out.
I read a really horrible book. And all I could think of was, this was stupid. The ending is crap. Why the hell couldn't this person have actually stuck the landing a little bit better? And I'm so upset with that author right now because promises made in book 1 and 2. I'm in the series is all the way up to book 9 now, and book 9 is a repeat of 8, which is a repeat of 7, which is a repeat of 6.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, get over the hump and just finish. I'm interested in the story. I was sold on the characters. And I'm like, I bet you this is how a lot of people feel about my books, because I haven't published anything else, so they haven't actually gone anywhere in a while. And in addition to that, I mean, I'm on a whole bunch of other people's newsletters and stuff like that. So I'm on these newsletters with other authors that I know. And, a couple of them have made announcements in 2019 about how they quit their day job.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, if I could quit my day job, I would actually be able to write these books because I'd have time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the chicken and the egg theory, right? It's like if I could quit my day job, I'd have time to write my books. But I can't quit my day job because I have to have time to write my books.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and do you find that motivating? Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like a negative motivation that's not really actually going to work for you.
I am severely depressed. I should say that. I mean,
I would be.
I've actually had a couple of my readers who I don't know, but they've sent me books that, like, self-help books about this book really helped me through my depression. Don't go anywhere with it. Don't worry. So they sent me these really great books on psychological inputs on how to, like, repurpose your life so that you don't feel so you can be happier. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm depressed because I can't find a way to do the writing, which I do enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm depressed because I thought I was a better writer than my editors think my editors explained to me. And so and the other thing is I want to do it because I want to have control of my life, right? I mean, so it's like, it's the entrepreneur, it's the bookpreneur or authorpreneur or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
It's if I can earn enough money to supplement, to actually pay for my life without having to answer to somebody else, I'd be so happy. Right?
Mm-hmm. It sounds like you have some incredible fans who are invested enough in your writing to read your newsletter and to send you self-help books and to give you that kind of feedback. So that's got to be rewarding and motivating.
If I could just write the books, they'd probably read them.
Right. Yeah. Well, and you are writing. We do know that because we're working together again. Yeah.
It sounds like you've kind of come full circle on that, getting back to the things that fill you up rather than the things that tear you down, right? Like, it kind of feels like that you've decided that the things that are important is the writing rather than the other stuff, and that you're moving forward in that direction, correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's what's important, so I'm trying to find time to do that. But again, I'm not succeeding because this is, I mean, if there's one piece of advice for anyone who's trying to do this, is don't stop.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, because honest to goodness, I'll swear on a stack of books, it's the worst thing you can do to yourself is stop.
Right.
Because, Newton's law of motion applies 100% to your life. It's like whatever you're doing, exercising, eating right, writing, trying to become a full-time author, if you're doing it, don't stop. Because the hardest thing is to start back up again, right? I mean, and that's where I'm at right now, which is, I literally had not, I opened up a Scrivener file that was literally 3 years to the day, right? So it was 3 years of not touching any of these words, and that was a year ago. And now I've written 2 novellas in 1 year, both of which I now have to write again because of a certain editor.
Right, and if people haven't all picked up on it, that's me. People might go, why are they being so obtuse? What's up with this editor? But no, yeah. But the fact is it's because I'm trying to put out good works. I fully understand that I am not an expert, and and to be honest, I mean, Alita's feedback is awesome. I mean, in working with a good editor, and Alita's probably one of the best. The feedback you get, the loop you have, it is very, very helpful, and it helps you craft something that will be, top of your game. Mm-hmm. But for me, because of the amount of time I can dedicate to this, I can't get the turnaround fast enough, and that's really it's really grinding me down a little bit. I mean, so it's kind of hard to survive through that.
So it's like, once you start, don't stop.
Right. I think that's great advice to keep the momentum going. And that's something we were talking about in our shows at the beginning of the month or the end of last month about our motivation and our struggles, and how valuing your writing time is so critical, because if you don't do it, nobody else will. And I think, talking about having an editor's feedback and the feedback loop, and if someone isn't in a position to work with an editor right now, maybe a writing partner or a really high-end, high-quality critique group of your peers is useful. You had mentioned the family support kind of drying up as so much of your time was taken up by marketing and, trying to learn the system. And boy, just having somebody who's going to talk about your work with you and help you see the value of your work as well as the flaws, but just getting that feedback, I find, enriches my writing experience, because then I'm not in the vacuum and I'm not so feeling so alone or feeling so unsupported in my work as an artist.
Yeah, and I think that's really critical. I mean, I was working with a friend of mine who wanted to become an author. Totally never got past chapter 2. Right, constantly rewriting the first 2 chapters.
Right. So
I sat down with him all through last year, and we had a weekly meeting where it's kind of like, well, what have you got? Let's talk about it. So we'd spend about 15, 20 minutes talking about his stuff. We'd spend 15, 20 minutes talking about my stuff. That was a really great positive loop. Unfortunately, his life got super critically busy, and he started doing a lot of travel for work. And so what that means is, somewhere around the end of October of last year, we stopped doing the weekly calls, and guess what? I've stopped making progress on rewriting my books. Right. So for me, it's almost a necessary element as much as a pen and a paper.
Right.
Is having someone to talk to about that, and so I've got to figure out a way to work through that.
Yeah. I think having that person to talk to is critical. And it sounds like you've been very honest with your followers through your newsletter and, coming on the show. So thank you for talking about what you've been going through. I think so many of us experience that. And it sounds like you've had positive feedback from your followers, people who are very supportive of your writing, even though, lately it's been...
I'm not writing, right? I mean, 3 years. For literally, it was 3 years since I put out a newsletter. So, I shifted everything over. I mean, I've really simplified everything. I have a cute diagram of how I engineered it. I did a little design thing, but I actually came up with a way to do it for less money, more effectively, and it's not dependent upon me being on Twitter and Facebook all the time. So, so my wife's happier because I'm not spending that money anymore.
Right.
I'm happier because I'm not spending the time anymore. And so, hopefully it's like I can get enough books out that my back catalog will get there to the point where, maybe I can do one massive Facebook push or Amazon sale push or whatever the marketing engine of that that will be at that time, that will kind of kickstart that fire.
Right. Do you have any advice or tips for writers who are listening to this and thinking, oh yeah, I need to do that. I need to do some streamlining or some reorganizing to kind of jumpstart me, back into that frame of mind I need to be in?
I think with regards to tools and stuff like that, there's so much more now available than there was 5 years ago when I first started. Honestly, I mean, the thing I've been trying to tell is, and this is the hardest part, is don't publish until you have a complete set, because you're not, most people are not going to be able to say, hey, my debut book earned as much money as I do in my day job for the year.
Right.
That's not normal, but it does not matter, because what matters is the building. That's something I didn't understand when I started. It's like momentum is additive. So if you can ride the wave, it's just like surfing. It's like you can surf on a small wave or you can surf on a massive wave. But the point is you actually have to catch it.
Yes.
And if you don't catch the wave, it doesn't matter how big it is or how small it was, you can't ride it. And you have to wait for the next wave and try and catch that one. Mm-hmm. And so if you think about it, if you have a trilogy, make sure you stick the landing.
Right. Always good.
The best thing you can do is just have a steady stream of stuff coming out, so the people who do like you will go, okay, it's been 6 months, I should go check to see if Leeland's got the next book out.
Yes.
I mean, that's what I do for all my favorite authors. I actually know all my authors. I know their timelines. And I'm like, okay, hey, it's November. That's right. I need to go check these 3 authors, see if that new, if the new book's out. Mm-hmm. Usually it is, or there's a little announcement saying it's almost done. It'll be out next month, right? And I'm like, right. But I know the schedules. Mm-hmm. That only works if you stay on a schedule.
Yeah, right. And what we all want to be doing with our time is writing books, not worrying about learning the latest social media trends or the latest advertising trends. Although if people are currently thinking about advertising, we can refer them back a couple of episodes to Brian Cohen's visits at the round table. Very useful
Brian Cohen
stuff.
Was actually, he was getting started when I got started. So I was in with him and Nick Stephenson and Mark Dawson. I started when they started. I hit when they hit.
Oh no, it's hard not to have comparisonitis, but that's something Catherine, Robert, and I have talked about more than once on the show, how the best thing you can do is avoid looking at other people's trajectories and holding them up next to your own.
Don't read the negative reviews and don't read your own reviews.
Yeah. Yes. Don't. Yeah. Well, thank you, Leeland, for sharing your journey with us, and we really appreciated this conversation. Do you have any final thoughts or pieces of advice?
Give away as much as you possibly can, because that's the best way to go.
There you go.
So I mean, if you have a trilogy, I know it sounds stupid, but just give away the first book. So, and by the way, that's what I'm doing. So, I sent you a link.
Yeah, you sponsored one of our shows right before the holidays.
Yeah, I am trying to give away 500,000 copies of my first novel.
Very great. And what is the URL where people can find that first novel?
It's lartra.com/get-slivers. So GET-SLIVERS. And a lot of people think it's thread silver, but no, it's sliver, as in something you poke yourself with.
Get. Excellent, and we will put a link to that in the show notes.
Cool.
Thank you for listening to the StoryWorks Roundtable. Find all our shows, show notes, and videos at storyworkspodcast.com.